Okay, here we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ozini University. We're currently live streaming on the link that you can find on the chat. Today, here we go. Very pleased to host Li Kun from Xi'an University in China. Thank you so much for being with us today. We very much appreciate that. I would like to introduce our guest. Li Kun is a lecturer of architecture from A lecturer of architecture from Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology, People's Republic of China, researcher at the State Key Laboratory of Team Building China. Also Deputy Secretary General of the Professional Committee on Residential Buildings of the Architectural Society of China, and Vice Director of the Shaanxi Provincial Rural Revitalization Planning and Research Institute. He received his Bachelor and Master of Architecture from Xi'an University in 2009 and 12, and his PhD in Architecture from the Polytechnic of Milano in 2021. Once again, thanks very much, Li Kun, for being here with us. I would like to invite you to be a discussant in January to the final seminar of this course, where students are developing their own papers. So they're going to be sharing with a group of discussants, and we'll do that by email later on. Sometime in the beginning of January, that will follow. But for now, share, and welcome to Istanbul.
Thank you, and very appreciate. And thank you for all the colleagues and students who in this seminary and to come to listen my lecture. And today I want to share you some outcome of my PhD study and some follow studies. Okay, so now I share my screen. Is that okay?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think I have 1 hour for this lecture, and I'll try to speak faster, quicker. Okay, so my today the title of the lecture is something about the morphology study of Chinese villages, traditional villages, and I call it the four factors affecting the traditional settlement form of China. And so I hope this to introduce some morphological reasons behind the rural settlements in China. Some natures, some rules behind the forms. Okay, so first I want to show this interesting map. This is map drawn 150 years ago, let's see. So it shows the landscape and villages near the Summer Palace in Beijing. Maybe some people, if you have ever been in China, you go to Beijing, and the Summer Palace is a very famous place. And the painting both realistic and abstract elements on it. So we can see here, this is the palace. And around the palace, there are also some residential areas and some settlements and villages, but they expressed symbolically. And you can see there's a village, and it's only a unique courtyard on the painting. So according to the painting, if we crop out each of the functional types in the picture, we can get an interesting discovery that each type of building has a different scale in the painting. Like this is the palace, and you can see different scales, maybe very small one, we call it S, M, L, different scales. And also the increase in scale is formed by the clustering of single buildings of the same size and courtyards of the same size. This is the villages. You can see one village, two village, and also some big villages. And also some temples. So this painting therefore reflects the Chinese understanding of architecture as a constant combination of types and archetypes. This with the barracks and some offices and factories. So if we see them together, we can see there are different functions. But just like Arulossi said, when discussing the impressions of traditional Japanese architecture, which is also influenced by the Chinese culture, that it is difficult to tell the difference between the civil, the religions, and the community buildings of the past. So when we link up the smallest functional buildings in that set of paintings, we see that they are all looks like indistinguishable from each other. So they looks like the same. And the simplifies the version of the, we can say, lower standard house. It's only missing two, like these two wings building in a standard courtyard. So all different functions buildings, they looks like the same. And the layout is in the middle. They all looks like a very standard design. So when many compounds of the grouped courtyard gathered, the settlements such like villages and cities were formed. So this is a very traditional Chinese city, which name is Pingyao, and is the UNESCO heritage. So you can see the very small units, and one unit is a small courtyard. This should be a house. So going further, we can read how the ancient Chinese describe the city. And as in European cities, the public and cultural buildings form a critical infrastructure for the practice of the urban fabric and play a very important role in the urban form. When we see this Nolly map, and there would be no urban order if the city consists only by the isolated buildings and the monuments. So this is why we focus our attention today on the historical research and residential architecture study in China. So the residential building and the organize of the residential buildings is very important. So in Chinese settlements, dwellings occupying a large amount of space also, and with similar dimensions and grouped together in very tight manners, with almost no gaps visible within the group. So the result of their combination presents a very organic fabric. And this kind of single-story courtyard become a basic spatial pattern and ideal residential buildings form for much of the northern Chinese area during the traditional period. So this is a very typical courtyard. We see in Chinese, it's called yuan. And the building in this image becomes the smallest unit in the traditional urban form and the smallest unit in the courtyard. So it is realized through the timber self-supporting structure, where the walls themselves do not bear the heavy of the roof. So the main structure is these timbers, and the walls only is the enclosure. So from this picture, we can see that the typical technique feature is that the structural beams and pillars are connected by the mortise and toned joints. So the scale of the building is also measured by the number of we call it room between the two pillars. There is a 1 room, 2 room. You can see 1 room, 2 room, and 3 rooms. So 3 room or 1 room or 2 room is a measurement of the building in the traditional China. And also we can see there are some purlins on the roof. So 3 rooms and 5 purlins. This is how people to describe this building. And in another view, we can see it's very clear that the scale of the residential courtyard in ancient China or in old-time China, traditional period, they are quite small. If we compare it with the medieval cities of Firenze, Florence. So you can see they all have courtyards, but the courtyards in very different size. So small scale is a feature of the Chinese courtyard. And also not only in the city, but also in the countryside. This is the map in 1950s. So the rural area, the villages looks like a small part of the city. But nowadays, they changed a lot. Okay, so why I said nowadays they change a lot, we can compare with the Xi'an map between 1950s and today. So almost all the small courtyards were demolished, and the big buildings occupy the city space. But if we compare it with the Florence, they're different. The 1950s, 1940s looks like today. It's not so much different. So there's a very important thing is that the Chinese traditional building, the Chinese traditional settlements, they are very weak. They're very easy to demolish. So this is also a disadvantage of our cultural heritage. Okay. So now it can be seen that we have following features of the Chinese traditional houses. For example, they are mortise and toned technicals. They are self-supporting timber frames and timber structures. They have smaller scale, and they are modularized. Like Lego, they can combine with one piece to another with very simple elements. So they're also very damageable, very easy to demolish, and they required maintenance. Maybe every 10 years or every 5 years, they need to check and in ancient time, they need to repair. So have 2 questions for me, is that, are these features unique to traditional Chinese residential architecture? And why did ancient Chinese do not use stone to build strong and durable houses? I think this question is quite meaningful, because today in China, there's a lot of people, even some scholars, they think that the Chinese buildings characters is the timber structure is the pillar system, the pillar and beam system. And we think it is because Chinese people, they do not like to use the stone as a material. They just familiar with or used to use the wooden material. Is that real? Is that the real answer? So this is the question. And who do not want they have a very safe and very strong building to maintain? But why Chinese people do not use stone to build their building? It's not mean that there's no Chinese building built by stone, made of stone, but most of them in the traditional period. Okay, so this is two questions. So some question is very easy to answer because, for example, there are some examples of wooden elements jointed by the mortise and the Tongjans. For example, in the Iron Age settlements in Poland, in Biskupin and some other places, archaeologists have discovered a number of settlement ruins built of wood between, let's say, the 760 and before Christian. So they were originally built on the swamp environment, the wetland, and all the walls and buildings rose that is constructed by the timber. So the construction of houses with sloping roof and such timber structures, materials were not only found in China, also in Europe. And there's another example, is more easy to answer this question, is that in New Zealand. So New Zealand is a country that they has historically struggled with flood for a long time. And as early as 14th century, even further back, most housing in New Zealand was timber framed. And this timber framed house can be defined as the self-supporting structure, consisting of the jointed frame members. So it quite looks like the Chinese buildings. And even the wall do not support the roof. They have the self-supported timber structure system. So the wooden structure is not the unique one in China. And also the smaller dimension of the courtyards is not unique in China. There's a case of a house in Pompeii in Italy. We can see that compared with this slaver vending house in Pompeii, you can see that there's a typical courtyard in northern China, which looks like so much like that in the skill level. So when we found that the skill of their central courtyards are quite similar. So in this part, the green one, because these two line in the same scale. And also in China, we also have like two connected and three connected courtyards like this. So also on this figure, it is easier to see the similarity in scale and form between the two types of the courtyards between the west and east in the world. So since in terms of the materials and skill and traditional Chinese dwelling are not unique, so the search for more essential features of traditional Chinese settlement patterns or forms becomes a new question. So in order to answer this question, when I did my PhD thesis, I chose to investigate the villages in the Loess Lutou region, where traditional settlements are very concentrated in China. So this part. So this map is the study of the distribution of those traditional Chinese villages that are in a better state of preservation. So now today, if you come to China, you want to visit some old place in the countryside, you want to visit some traditional villages, you can use this map. It's very helpful. So this map shows the location of the entire Yellow River basin and the location of the villages I investigated, which are in the middle reaches of the Yellow River here. So the village is situated next to the Loess Cliff. Yes, the Loess Cliff next to the Yellow River. And this is the 10 kilometers wide bed of the Yellow River. So now let's go back to the second question. Why did the ancient people do not use stone or brick to build very strong and durable houses? So this is the question. So as Peter Hall mentions in his book, The Cities in Civilization, the influence of the environment on the formation and the development of civilization is immense. So the environmental determinism become a first and foremost research tool in this investigation. So in this section, I would like to take the position of that the traditional Chinese architecture traditions were formed as a response to unstable environment. So why the environment is unstable? This is also a question I'll explain later. So first, I want to introduce an interesting point that Chinese architecture originated from tents. So one of the earliest proposers of this such idea was the Dutch philosopher De Poel. In his philosophical paper on the Egyptian and Chinese in the 18th century, he argued that the effects of different climates, like the ancient Egyptian and the ancient Greeks, to choose different architectural forms, and also this kind of climate situation also form the Chinese buildings. Okay, and later, De Quincey inherited and developed De Quincey's views. He proposed that the environment of the primitive society determines the original forms of architecture, and these forms can be classified three types. The cabans, or we call it the charpentier of in Greece, and the souterrains in Egypt, and the tent in China. So almost at the same time, Thomas Hope made a similar observation in his historical essay on architecture. He found that carefully that the roof shape of Chinese building is very much imitation of a tent, especially in the terms of the ridge form and the curve of the roof. You can see in this picture. In Rudowski's book, The Architecture Without Architects, there is an illustration of the Tatar tent. So it's easy to see that the similarities between the tent roof and the roof of the ancient Chinese palaces in Forbidden City. You can see this curve and this curve looks quite same, and the ridge is quite same. So also in the famous work of Semper, the 4 elements of architecture, Semper proposed that among all the existing architectural forms in all countries, the gap between Chinese architecture and nomadic tent forms is smallest. He also stressed that in China, the 4 architectural elements most clearly have remained separated from one another. And also the Osmo is a missionary who had been in China in 19th century. Also expressed his idea is that so far as we can trace back in temple roof and the country house alike, the reproductions in stone and bricks and tale of the stretching tents of ancient nomadic China on her arrival in her new home. And he said, China is a country so ancient and with people so long acquainted with the arts, civilization, and their education and literary monuments. But why there are so few ancient buildings? So when Moi came in China in the 18th century, he found that all the residential buildings not as old as 200 years or 300 years. Maybe all the buildings look very young. So that is his question. So if we try to answer this question, we can see these 2 maps. This is show the northern boundary of the farming grazing traditional zone in the left, and the right is the course of the Yellow River changed in the past 3,500 years. We can see in the past the boundary between the called the nomadic culture and the cultivated culture. They moved from this part to south to north, almost 1,000 kilometers. So this is a very long distance. And also in the past 3,500 years, the Yellow River changed its riverbed from the north to south and then go back to the north. So every 25 years, there's a very big change of the riverbed. And also, maybe every 2 years, there are very curable, very big flooding in the surrounding areas of the Yellow River Basin. So that is a very bad situation for the ancient Chinese people. So that's why the very important American Chinese historian Ray Huang pointed that in a book in which name is China, a Macro History, that floods and water flooding greatly influenced the formation and development of Chinese society. The Yellow River often has a very settled riverbed and causing flooding and embankment of the embankment and the possibility of massive loss of life and property of the ancient people. So how to face this flooding, how to face this situation, how to change the lifestyle is a very important question for the ancient Chinese people. So also, if we look some ancient Chinese book, some historical book in ancient China, you can see that there's one word. It said that in ancient time, the former kings do not have places permanently. In winter, they lived in souterrains. They lived in maybe in a cave, underground or on the ground. And in summer, they live in massive developed places. Maybe they live some houses on the tree or in high places. So it means that in winter and in summer, they change their places to live. And maybe when the flooding is coming, they also need to move to other places to find a dry place to live, to do their cultivative work, and to do farming works. So this is give us some idea. An important word is change. They change the place to live. And also, if we try to read some inscriptions on the orchids and bones and ancient brazen objects, we can see that there's a character which we call it migrate or move or relocate in Chinese. The Chinese character, which is qian, we call this. We can see that this very interesting is that when they write this this word, they use some circle like the section of the timber materials, like the section of the wood. And also we can, some scholars say this is the nuts, the nest of the bird, and the meaning of it is the house of people. And also around this nest, there are 4 or 6 hands. So this is the hands, the nest, the hands. And it means that when people give a meaningful to the word move or relocation, it means that they move some timber materials from one place to another. And also, at least they hold their nest, their house, their home, maybe from one place to another. And some 100 years later, when this character improved, they improved the way to write it. And there are 4 hands and 1 nest or one home. And in another part, there is a character. This character means fiefdom or means town. So it means that they move something to another town. This is the meaning of move, relocated, and relocation, and removals, and migrate. And also, this words can be found in a very ancient, we call it the container. And this container also, people found the earliest Chinese character China, or in Chinese 中国 in this place. So this is a very important container and very important font, which people find it produced in at least 3,000 years ago. So in this way, we can have an idea that because of the flood, because of the change of the climate, change of the situation of the surrounding environment, people need to move from one place to another to face the flooding. And that's also answer the question which Mu asked: why in such ancient country people cannot find so many ancient buildings? For example, this picture shows the earliest residential building in Beijing, and where they found it, in the basement under the city wall of Beijing. In the 1950s, when the government demolished the city wall of Beijing, they found the archaeologists found the basement of some courtyards, residential buildings, courtyards from Yuan Dynasty. So means it's 600 years ago. And nowadays, it's quite difficult to find a residential building in Song Dynasty, in Tang Dynasty, never. So why they despaired? Maybe one reason is that they were demolished, or people demolished them and built some new buildings on the basement because the wood cannot maintain so much time. And also maybe when people move to other places, they also take these materials with them and take these pillars, take these big beams, take the tiles with them, and maybe they can transport it on the water because the wood can transport like a boat. They can float on the water and move them from one place to another very easily. So this is the basement, the layout of the courtyard basement in Yuan Dynasty. So we can see them like in a belt because this the basement of the city wall. Okay, so this picture is a very interesting picture. I want to show to show the idea is that when the flooding is coming, or when there are some very damageable changing of the environment, people can move their buildings and can first make them buildings into small elements, and then you take these small elements to another place. And there's also of interesting thing is that in ancient China, when we found some documents, we see that the yin and the yang attributes of the residential building is changed when they move from one place to another. So this is also interesting thing is that it's also tell us maybe in the ancient time, the migration is very, very common. It's a popular thing people did to face the situation. Because when they move to another place, their nature is also changed. Okay. So now let's go to another factor. We call it the dictionary or dictionality. So when we read Zhugen's book, which the primitive classification of the different culture as a fundamental principle of the spatial division, the orientation system constitution the essential elements of a regional socially based classification, and has profoundly influenced the Chinese culture. So, for example, we can see the orientation is important in the cultural elements in ancient architecture. So before the architecture, it's also important to the culture itself. And the different azimuths, or we call different orientation, have different meanings in the ancient time. For example, in this table, we can see that the north not only means the north also means winter, also means the element of earth, the fifth element in Chinese culture, and also means the, not means the earth, means the water. And east not only means east, it also have meaning of wood, have also meaning of the spring in 4 seasons. And also the south have meaning of fire, of summer, and the west have meaning of mantle, the autumn, and also moon. And they also have some meaning of different numbers. So this different meaning also works on the influence the architecture, influence the building construction. And for the emperor or for the king, they always face to the south from Han Dynasty or from after the Han Dynasty, because face to the south, it means that the building can get more salary, can get new sunshine, not salary, the sunshine and the scholar energy. So this is in this table we can see the correspond of the 5 elements and the 5 directions, 5 orientations, and also have business with music, and with the seasons and different things. So the archaeologists just found that in the ancient time, ancient palaces in China were always oriented to the south from at least 4,000 years ago. So all these palaces, you can see the south face to the south. This means the north. This means the north. So they have a strong feature that the courtyard and the courtyard face to the south. But for the original ordinary guys, ordinary people, are their houses all facing to the south? Is also a question. So also we can see these different orientations numbers, the number of different orientations have some relationship with the height of the building. For example, in this courtyard, the south building, which the roof height at the end number is like 1 or 6. For example, this is 0.16 unit, and this is number of the north. It also works on the south building, the west building, and east building in the courtyard. So this is what I found it in the investigation in the village, and people said this is their tradition. This is a really tradition. So this tradition formed the building form and the village morphology. Okay. So, and also there are 2 floors of this building, and the first floor and second floor, their height is different. And the first floor, they have 8 units, and second floor, they have 7 units. And this is also a tradition. So this 8 not only means a number, it also means an element of wood, and 7 means the fire. And we know that in Chinese culture, the 5 elements, they have some relationship between each other. Sometimes they say the fire grown from wood. So maybe this have some interesting connection between this kind of culture. So let's answer another question, is that in villages, are these courtyards all face to the south, like this conception layout. So if like this, every people or every family can face to the south. But the reality is that not all the courtyards face to the south. Some face to the north, or some face to the east, some face to the west. And if we combine the area with each other, we found that in this way, in the right layout, they are more safe landing. They can save more land. They can save more cultivated land. And in this way, the ventilation, the wind can from one place to another and make a better environment for the ventilation. And in this way, the wind go very fast, and maybe there's a shortcut for the wind. And the new air is quite hard to go inside to the courtyards. So this is also a concern of Heijin. And if we show some the result of the investigation, we can find that here we can see this is the part of the historical center. We call the historical center of this village. And the one color, the different color shows the different orientation of the courtyard. So we can see there, although most of them, they want to face to the south, but a lot of them also face to east or north or west. And also we can see that we also have this kind of layout, but this kind of layout is built after the 2000s or 1990s, because in this time they destroyed the traditional culture, and they do not use traditional culture to build the new houses and plan a new residential area. But in the true traditional area, they're different. And it's not only in one village, but also in other villages in the same situation. And for the orientation, there's another very interesting thing is that when we do some investigation along the Yellow River, we can see that the main axis of these villages, they all seems face to one mountain peak. So all these axes, they are not the similar angle. They are different. So they face to the mountain peak. So I'm interested about that. I asked the villagers, why your road faces to this peak? He told me they have no idea about that. They don't know why. But there's an interesting thing is that he told me, when they stand on the road, and when they stand on the road, they see the peak. If there are some clouds on the peak, their older generation told them that when you see there are some clouds on the peak, it means that maybe not more than 1 hour, there will be very heavy rain here. So I'd like to tell people the future climate. So for a society in ancient China, which people, the first industry is farm industry. The people do the cultivated land, cultivated work. So they need this kind of climate signature to tell them what will happen in the future and to guide their farm work. So this is very useful plan. This is very useful plan And this kind of plan also influence the settlement's morphology. So that's why if we see some ancient painting of the in ancient China, and we can see this, there's a city and there are a lot of mountains around it, and they show where is the river, they show where is the mountains. But if we see the axis, we can see that this main gate, the main road, always point to the mountain peak. And also in this picture, in this map, it's also the same. This is the city, and this is the hills and mountains, and this is the rivers. So mountain and river is feng shui, okay? And also the axis face to, pointed to a very far distance peak. Okay, so in the former study of our group, my supervisor and my colleague worked together, and we found this result in another village, is that almost each video creator which pointed to a peak far distance. And also we can see we can call them the ideal layout of the ancient people settlement, is that the location of the settlement and the link between the peak and the settlement, just like what they painted in the ancient book. So this is a very interesting thing. And the third factor I want to introduce is nomology. Because just now we said that in the village, not all the courtyards face to the south and face to the same orientation. They face to different orientation. But if people think that south is good because south they can get more salary in the winter, the sunshine in the winter, they can get more solar energy. But why they choose the other directions? Because we know that the other directions, they have some hidden reason, they have some reason to save the land. But maybe there's some conflict between each other to choose the orientation or choose the land. So I think that ancient Chinese people is very smart. It's that they have a kind of system to organize the layout of the village, and they tell people that there are some feng shui theory, is that what location or which direction for a house or for a courtyard is good. It not depends on it face to south or north. It depends on the host, the people's birthday. And different people have different nature. And based on their birthday, you can get a good orientation for you and your family of your courtyard. So this is a very complex system, but it's very useful, is that people do not want only to their courtyard face to the south, because maybe for his birthday, it's better that to leave a courtyard oriented to the east. So he wants to live in this place, because if he live in this kind of courtyard, it means that maybe in future his family will healthy, he will be richer, he will get more income, like this. So in this picture, we show different layout. This is just some example, not all. There's some layout of the different the layout of the courtyard. And in this kind of layout, we can see the gate is in different position, and some good positions and some bad positions. And people put the good position, for example, the living room, the bedroom in the good places, good positions, and put the restroom, put the toilet, and some, for example, their they have the fireplace, for example, and also the cook place in the bed position. So this is a very useful tools to help people organize their families layout, and also a very good tools to organize the layout of the village. Okay. So this is some ancient painting. Can have a look. And also this is the layout of the the courtyard.
Sorry, Li Kun, we got 3 minutes. You should.
Okay. So I can speak more faster. Okay. So here, just go to the last factor, which is the regulation. What's the regulation influence the morphology of the countryside, of the villages? Here we can see that there's a very rich family's house, and because they are very rich, they have much land. They have more lands to build their house. But why they do not build so big courtyards, and they can only build small courtyards one by one? This just because of the regulation in the ancient times. So ordinary guys, their building cannot exceed 3 rooms and 5 lanes for each rooms. So in this way, people have this kind of layout of their buildings. So here I just go very fast, do not to explain so much details. So the key words here, I think, is that the 4 factors which we found, which influence the layout, influence the urban form or the village form in China, have the same basement, is that we call it the philosophy of change. So, and we can also find this philosophy in the Book of Changes. It's a very famous Chinese philosophy book, we say. So because of the change of the environment, because of the change of the orientation, because of the change of people's birthday, anyway, all the changes give the Chinese settlements or urban form a very interesting feature, is that the authenticity of the Chinese settlements, form and morphologies, is just a change. So this is what I want to introduce today. And thank you very much for your for your attention. And also, if you want to get some more information about this lecture, you can also read my book, which will publish in next year. And also, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Li Kun, for your illuminating presentation about the reasons behind the form and structure of these Chinese houses. It is too bad that we're short of time, because I have a number of comments, but I don't think we have enough time to do that. So maybe we can organize another event, if you agree, online or as you wish, and continue the discussion, which is indeed very interesting, but it would take more time. And class is over. I would just like to make one comment with a quote from Lao Tzu, who says, "The most important aspect of the house is where the house is built."
Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you again. Let me stop recording.